Good evening, and welcome to those here in attendance and those online to the June 5th. Is the microphone working? Oh, they're adjusting. So there we go. To the June 5th, 2025 City Commission meeting held here at the Water and Sewer Services Complex. It's currently 6:02, and we will call the meeting to order. If everyone would welcome Pastor Alan Evans from Faith Miracle Sanctuary, who will lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everybody please rise.
Heavenly Father, we approach the throne of grace tonight. We pray for our leaders that will be presiding over our meeting tonight. We pray for our mayor, vice mayor, all the commissioners. We pray also for all those that have gathered here tonight. We do ask your blessing upon us because we know that you're the overseer of all meetings. So we ask for your wisdom. We ask for your guidance. We ask for your direction. We ask for the peace of God to rest in this place tonight. We also pray, Lord God, for understanding. You said, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. But with all thy getting, get an understanding. Help us, Lord God, to see tonight every situation, every circumstance, every issue that is brought forth. Let us see it with clarity. Father, we also ask for your guidance for every voice that will come up and speak tonight, whether it's from the podium up front or whether it's from this microphone. We pray in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ that your heart would be felt here tonight. We also pray that every voice that will come forth, the words of their mouth and the meditation of their heart will be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Father, more than anything, let your will be done over all of ours. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
No. Ms. Ball.
Yes, Mayor. I think Commissioner...
Mr. Mayor, would it be possible, by way of a motion, to move item 9.2, that's the question of the moratorium in I-2, ahead in the agenda to precede the ordinances, which I would suggest could happen, I suppose, as like item 5.2 under after public comment? So my motion would be to move 9.2 to a 5.2.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Laus.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox,
Yes.
Mayor Hunter.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Ball.
The next order of business is consideration of the approval of the minutes for the regularly scheduled City Commission meeting held on Thursday, May 15th, 2025.
Are there any additions, corrections, or a motion?
I'll move to approve. Second.
Ms. Laus.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox.
Yes.
Mayor Hunter.
Yes. Ms. Ball.
The next order of business is proclamations, resolutions, and presentations. The first item is item 4.1. This is a presentation of a proclamation recognizing June 21st, 2025 as Celebrate Life and Community Day.
Here, John.
Whereas Celebrate Life Yaun mission was founded in 2016 with the desire to serve low-income and homeless members of our community through celebrations honoring the birthday of those individuals with food and fellowship, and whereas those quarterly celebrations allowed the individuals to feel seen, heard, and valued by others, and whereas these celebrations have expanded to include any life event life event a community member cherishes and wishes to recognize. And whereas this nonprofit organization has doubled its membership in the years since its founding and expanded its services to the community to include graduation celebrations for the community's young people and supporting Black History Month with special programming. And whereas it is the goal of Celebrate Life Young mission to bring the entire community together to realize they are loved and appreciated. Now, therefore, I, John Hunter, Mayor of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim June 21st, 2025, Celebrate Life and Community Day in Johnson City, Tennessee, and encourage the citizens of Johnson City to value, respect, and celebrate their neighbors.
Okay, I just want to thank you. You now. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and members of the Commission, for this incredible honor. On behalf of Celebrate Life Yahoo Mission, I'm grateful to accept this proclamation. This moment is deeply personal. I am a survivor of war, poverty, abuse, and displacement across ocean, literally and figuratively, to build my life in this country and now Johnson City. My journey has taught me that no pain is wasted when you turn it into purpose. That's what Celebrate Life Yahoo Mission is all about. This proclamation is more than just a piece of paper. It's a powerful reminder that every life has value regardless of social status, that healing is possible, and that our city sees and supports those on the path to transformation. Thank you for recognizing our mission and fueling our purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, the next item is a presentation of proclamation recognizing June 21st, 2025 as Ask Day, ASK.
Yep, here we go.
Nice to meet you, too.
Both got our hands.
How are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you, too.
Whereas Brady is a nonprofit bipartisan organization that aims to end gun violence in America, and whereas the Brady ASK Asking Saves Kids campaign encourages parents to add one more safety question to conversations before their child visits others' homes. Is there an unlocked gun in your home? And whereas asking this question before sending your child to another home could save your child's life, and whereas the hope is that asking will become a routine health and safety question, offering an immediate solution that all can adopt to help protect their families and children from injury and death. And whereas the first day of summer, the season in which children and teens typically spend more time at the homes of friends and family, is designated as National Ask Day. And whereas the Washington County, Tennessee chapter of Brady Against Gun Violence invites all residents of Johnson City to participate in Ask Day. Now, therefore, I, John Hunter, Mayor of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim June 21st, 2025, Ask Day in Johnson City, and encourage fellow citizens to remain vigilant in the safety of our children and families. And if you'd like to say a few words. Okay.
I just want to invite you all to our Ask Day event, which is on June 21st. It's Saturday at Jeremiah Cafe from 10 to 12. We have two wonderful speakers, Dr. Allshouse, who's a pediatric surgeon with ETSU Health and a professor at ETSU, and a trainer from the VA, Tori Dreyer, on suicide prevention. So it's a wonderful opportunity to really find out a lot of important information and to make that important question: is there an unlocked gun in the home where my child is going to play or babysit or whatever? Thank you.
Thank you for being our leader. I just wanted to say one thing, and that is I'm a proud member of the Washington County Brady Group under the leadership of Carol and Mike. Can't forget Mike. And I also want to say we also give away free gun locks. We're not trying to take away anyone's guns. And I know a lot of people think when they hear anything gun and any gun group that we're for taking people's guns away. We're pro Second Amendment, and we don't have any issue with you having as many guns as you want. But what we want is safety with your guns, and we give away free gun locks. We set up different locations across the city and county. So if you're interested, get in touch with us, and we have free gun locks for anyone who would like one. You want to say anything?
It's interesting that we're celebrating life two different ways, the first two proclamations. And simply ask, is there an unlocked gun in the house? And put those up and store them, and the kids will be safe. Firearms are the #1 killer of children in this nation at this moment. And in Tennessee as well. So just put them up, and we're not trying to take your guns. I'm a gun owner. One time I lent my truck to my son. He calls me. A couple hours later, he's holding my pistol in a picture because I forgot to put it up. Put them up and keep our kids safe. Thank you so much.
Our event on the 21st is free at Jeremiah Cafe, and we will have gun locks. We've given over 280 already.
Mayor, the next recognition the next item is to recognize the Johnson City Fire Department, the Emeryville Volunteer Fire Department, and the State of Tennessee Forestry Service for their efforts during the March 15th, 2025 fire at Buffalo Mountain City Park.
We good? Okay. Good evening, Mayor Hunter, Vice Mayor Cox, Commissioners, City Manager Ball, and Ms. Louse. I'm April Norris. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director here in Johnson City, and I'm joined with one of our Parks Advisory Board members, Dr. Natalie Smith. She's actually the chair of our board. And we'd like to thank you for allowing us to appear before you this evening on behalf of the community to honor those who bravely protected our beautiful Buffalo Mountain on March 15th during a fire. Their swift and tireless efforts helped contain the fire to just 4 acres in the upper loop of Buffalo Mountain City Park. The plaques that we will be presenting to them this evening were made by the Parks and Recreation team from the tree that these brave men and women removed when the fire breached the contained area. The contained area was in that upper loop. It jumped over the roadway there that was kind of protecting it and caught a dead tree. So if it wasn't for those measures that they took, battling the winds that they were that evening, we would have saw a lot more devastation because it would have made its way up the mountain. So at this time, I would like to ask that to invite the representatives from the Johnson City Fire Department, the Emeryville Volunteer Fire Department, and the Tennessee State Forestry Service to come forward and join Natalie and I.
We appreciate everything that you all do on a daily basis, and just really want to acknowledge the great work that you all do on every day. But if y'all want to say any words? Fire. Oh, y'all always good. Any? Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Turn around. Oh, wow, look at that. That's beautiful. Wow. That's great. Thank you. And thank you all for what you did.
And Mayor, as you make your way back up, the next item is public comment. This is item 5.1, and I believe you have a list of folks signed up to speak and the item for which they're signed up to speak under.
As always, public comment is limited to those who have signed up at least 12 hours in advance. Comments must be about an actual item on the agenda. You will have 3 minutes, and Mr. Willis will be our timekeeper.
You still can't hear.
We can't hear.
Can't hear.
Hello? There we
There
go.
you go.
Okay, there will be 3 minutes for public comment for each person that signed up, and Mr. Willis will be our timekeeper, same as 2 weeks ago. And are we starting with which 5 point?
No. Do you need?
I think we moved to 5.2 for the,
So it was 9.2?
Yeah, no, you're
No,
doing
you're doing public
comment.
comment.
All of them,
So you're
okay.
taking public
Okay.
comment first.
So we will do public comment on item, is it 8, 7? Ordinance 49.
I'm sorry, you'll do public comment on item, the Development Service, ordinance number 4919-25, an ordinance to amend Article 6, use requirements by district, for Article 11, parking regulations of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee zoning ordinance.
Okay, and for this, we have one person signed up, Micah Bray.
Good evening, Mayor and Honorable Commission members. My name is Micah Bray, and I live at 23 Charleston Court. I'm here to express my support for the zoning code amendments in front of you tonight. As an urban planner by profession, I support the efforts of staff and Planning Commission to revise the zoning code to encourage renovation and rehabilitation of buildings in the B3 district. I would also like to use my time before you tonight to request that you consider additional measures to reduce the vehicle parking space requirements in the B3 zone further to better facilitate reuse of existing buildings and encourage infill development. I would ask you to specifically consider the following revisions to the zoning code. First, consider revising section 11.2.6, which reads, parking space requirements may be reduced up to a total of 10% by one or a combination of the following: 1 space per 1 bike locker or 1 space per ribbon rack, or 1 space per 2 type 1 shade trees in excess of the minimum required amount. I ask that you increase the maximum percentage reduction of required parking spaces for B3 developments in exchange for providing long-term bike storage. Why do I ask this? Because the revisions in front of you tonight primarily benefit existing buildings looking to make minor changes to the use of their site. The changes in front of you do not encourage high-density residential infill development in a manner that does not subtract substantially from the gross lot area available for the buildings themselves. Second, please consider revising the types of bicycle storage allowed under section 11.2.6 for parking space requirements reductions. Ribbon racks are not user-friendly and make for a poor option for long-term bike storage. Bike lockers are a much better option, but individual bike lockers are not the most space-efficient option for secure, long-term bike storage. It is also not clear from the definition of a bicycle locker in the zoning code whether shared bike locker rooms or shared sheltered enclosures in general satisfy the definition. They are far more space-efficient than individual bike lockers and can be hidden from view, reducing the impact of the bike storage on the visual appeal of the development. I strongly encourage that staff reference the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals Bicycle Park Guidelines, 2nd edition, for further guidance on how to revise the zoning code to expand the options for bike storage that will qualify for reductions in required parking spaces. This leads me to my last request. Please consider asking staff to revisit the definitions of bike locker and bike rack in Article 2 of the zoning code. At present, the only allowable bike rack is a ribbon rack, and the bike locker definition may unintentionally exclude shared bike locker rooms or other shared shelter enclosures. In closing, I am not an expert in the city's zoning code, nor am I specialized in land use planning. What I can offer you instead is my perspective as a former resident of Midtown Atlanta, where provision of long-term bicycle storage was crucial to encourage residents like myself to use my bike for short-distance trips instead of my car. These are, in my mind, necessary steps to further advance the land use elements of the bridge plan cited tonight in support of these revisions. Furthermore, these changes I request tonight would allow new developments in the B3 district to come even closer to the vision of the land use element of the bridge plan and ultimately the soon-to-be-adopted Horizon Plan to encourage the preservation and expansion of downtown's urban form that attracts so many residents like myself to live in this beautiful city. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Micah.
Mr. Bray, excuse me, Mr. Bray, do you have that in writing that we could pass on to staffs? Okay.
Absolutely.
If you do that, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Public comment, item 8.3, which is ordinance 4914-25, an ordinance to amend Article 2 definition of terms used in the code, and Article 6 use requirements by district as it relates to industrial districts, I-1, I-2, heavy industrial, and adding provisions for data centers. First, for public comment is Thomas Cook. There we go.
Hi, folks. Wow. My thing is, with this, the moratorium and everything we're going to be talking about, and I've researched and looked all over different states, North Carolina, South Carolina, and you know, Bitcoin is kicked out of a lot of countries, Kosovo, China, the mining has because of the extreme power grid draws. North Carolina is trying to make it so strict to put a Bitcoin mine in a community, can't be in a community, can't be next to a scenic way like Tipton Haynes, can't be near a school within 1 mile of a school or anything like that, a neighborhood. And right across the street, you know, we have Tipton Haynes, we have a school, we have a neighborhood. And the adverse effect it's been shown to take on against our environment, our wildlife, our people, period. You know, I think we all need to sit down and think about it. We had a meeting the other night, and I closed with some prayer that we would all be stewards of what God has given us in this county, in this city, to be able to go out my back door and look at deer, look at bear, and see all this. And if this stuff goes in, this stuff's going to disappear. I've been to the ones that sit there and listen. You don't hear a bird chirp. You don't see a rabbit run across the field. You don't see deer hanging out. And they're wanting to put this right across the street from a place where kids come, adults come, to the Tipton Haynes farm. I've talked with Representative Rusty Crow, and he's like, I don't want it. I don't want it next to our things. I don't want it next to Tipton Haynes. And I look at it and say, why do we have to bring it to Johnson City? Why can't we make it so restrictive like these other places that you're going to have to shut down? You can't run between the peak hours of 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. Your decibel level, noise level of decibels has to be at 50 or under. Everything has to be recycled. Everything has to be shown to be recycled. Anything that comes up with the Bitcoin, they're finding ways to restrict it so much that they don't want to come to that area. And I think that's what we need to look at. I've read through our stuff, and it's weak, very weak. I think not just you guys, but the community needs to sit down with you guys and put pen to paper and mind to paper and mind to mind and come up with a way that we can make this a restrictive thing, because it's not bringing anything to our community, especially mine, because I live 0.2 miles from it. And it's not going to bring anything to me. And Mr. Bruni lives inches from it. And I just think we ought to think about that.
Thank you, Mr.
Come
Cook.
together with your constituents that put you there. Sit down with them and talk.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Next on our agenda is Carmen Cook.
Hello, good evening. I'm here in just deep deep opposition to these text changes that we're recommending for the industrial area. As just tagging on to what Tom said, they are very weak compared to what we're learning from other cities and other countries. Here, we know that Limestone, they bought a bad deal, but we can give them a little bit of leeway. They didn't know what they were buying. Blue Ridge was not transparent with them, but we have an opportunity here. We have the learning curve. We know what's blowing up all over the country, so we are in a great position to where we can learn. Yes, I understand. I've learned talking about the state laws. You can't just say it's your property, but you can't move here. But what you have control over is, and what our city has control over, is this text that we are inserting. So it is very weak, and I want us to disapprove. You've approved it on first and second reading, but it needs to be disapproved until we get all those studies back that you recommended. And I am grateful, I'm slightly optimistic that we are voting on a moratorium. But it is not much relief at all, because we know it's right a year from now that Limestone has to close, and we know that Clean Spark is really, that they're out here on the hunt to move to move to another location. In the article from WCYB yesterday, Commissioner Wise, you were quoted as saying, we want the same thing that these groups are saying. And I'm glad to hear that. But this language that you're voting on tonight says the exact opposite. It is not. It's going to leave us too weak. And then Tom just commented about what he's found out in North Carolina. That's the type of language that we need to use when we do our text amendments. Then there's no place in Johnson City, in the city limits, that this is not going to have a huge impact on quality of life. It's well established. This does not bring jobs. It might bring some money. It definitely brings money to this corrupt company. They told Limestone, we want to be a good neighbor. We want to do the right thing. They have not done the right thing. And so we've got opportunity. Don't buy it. Don't buy into it. Don't repeat this. Then just to let you know on a personal level what it feels like to stand here and plead for what feels like destruction coming. It's like being tied to the railroad track. I can see the train coming. I'm doing everything that I can to get loose from the track. But it takes you all, and it takes everyone in this room to do the right thing for our city. All of us in here, we in our area, in South Johnson City, we've seen homelessness take over, litter take over, trash take over. We've got hundreds of residents moving in within the year.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Cook.
it's going to be a lot more hard to live over there anyway. So please stop trying to put all the undesirable stuff in South Johnson City.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Next public comment on this item is Rachel Hawley.
And of course, I want to say that I'm against Bitcoin too. And I found some information about Johnson City back in 2008. When Johnson City was designated as Tennessee's first green city, acknowledging the dedication to environmentally conscious practices. These efforts included converting its vehicle fleet to biodiesel, participating in a gas energy program, and its landfill that generates power for the VA administration. Green building initiative to improve the energy efficiency of city buildings. The city also received the Governor's Stewardship Award and Project of the Year from the EPA for its gas to energy program. Public Works Department has implemented environmentally friendly practices such as urban forestry, landscaping public spaces, and protecting stormwater and groundwater. Additionally, the city has been recognized for its clean air from the American Lung Association State of the Air report. I just want to know, where is that, Johnson City? What's happening to it? This don't sound like the Johnson City that I'm going to live in, that I'm going to be living in. It's just all turned around. And Bitcoin, I mean, how would you feel if Bitcoin moved in right beside your house? How would that make you feel? We see little kids in a trailer park right across the street from where this is going in. They have nowhere to play. You see them riding their little bicycles in gravel driveways. And now they're going to see this. It is just heartbreaking. Me and my husband go across the railroad track every evening to go over there to see deer, bear. Why would we want to take something that our firemen, I mean, they put a fire out over there. Why do we want to destroy these things? I just don't understand. And all these other states, you read, don't do it. It's bad. Why would we do this? I don't understand. And if we do this, I've lived here my whole life. I don't want to be here anymore if this happens. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hawley. Next is Shelby Hawley.
Thank you. My name is Shelby Hawley. I live in Crumlin Acres, just less than half a mile from where this site is. I'm going to give you some information I've researched on Greenwich Bitcoin mining in New York City. Had power source that Tony Ingraffia, a former Cornell University professor and natural gas expert, says ethical environment change fires up Bitcoin mining for private enterprise without regards to social good. It's a really bad thing to be doing. We need more than just a memorandum or regulations to say what it must adhere to and the rules, and when they break them, more than just a slap on the wrist. Ban, ban, ban Bitcoin. Some have done that, and must we also do that? In 2021, a group of 70 climate, economical, and racial justice organizations petitioned Congress to address cryptocurrency. The climate implications cited extraordinary levels of carbon emissions, energy consumed electrical waste caused by Bitcoin mining. From science to save the world, you know, it's unwise and in need of urgent action. Now look at the cameras that's been viewed, and look at these residents, and look at these children in these communities of Johnson City, and ask this one question. Can you look and say to the residents that you would not care what we are saying? Now, finish off 2021, JHL visited Washington County and stated that Bright Ridge was not transparent. And then there's things that we read up on Clean Spark that has an impression that may be coming to Johnson City. And why is that? You know, I think they're a valued customer of Bright Ridge. But I want you to consider, and don't forget, Tipton Haynes Historical Site, Buffalo Mountain, the school, should not be near this type of business. The pollution, the human effects, the animal effects, and I'll put it this way, if I have to listen to this all night and I can't sleep, I'm not going to be very happy. And I don't think you would either. So please, listen to these people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holly. Next is Robin Phillips.
I have papers for you all. Thank you. Good evening. Tonight, I am first addressing questions regarding the land purchase made by Bright Ridge in January of 2024. It was a little less than 7 acres purchased by Bright Ridge for $525,000 when the tax appraisal valued by Robbie McGuire was $193,600. Question number 1. Was an actual appraisal done on this land prior to Bright Ridge board members voting in favor of this purchase? If not, why wasn't it? And why wasn't it questioned by Bright Ridge board members? My second question is, were Bright Ridge board members made aware that the land purchase could be potentially used for Bitcoin mining to offset the loss of the monthly revenue from the limestone facility, which is set to close on or before March of next year? The Bright Ridge meeting minutes do not answer these defining questions. I sent an email to Bright Ridge board members and I have received no response. I also sent this to the Johnson City Commissioners and to you, Mayor Hunter. With you, Mayor Hunter, being on the Bright Ridge board, I knew you could answer these questions. I did receive your response. You responded, I quote, "Mrs. Phillips, I have copied Mr. Dykes from Bright Ridge so that Bright Ridge can address the questions you have regarding their purchase. Thank you for reaching out." Mayor Hunter, I do appreciate your response. However, you are our mayor and you sit on the Bright Ridge board. Therefore, I felt you were very qualified to answer these questions, but you chose not to answer them. If nothing was done wrong, why couldn't you answer the questions? An investigation needs to be conducted on this issue alone. Now, with all this being said, let's address how regulations can be put in place to completely deter Bitcoin mining as well as AI data centers from coming into I-2 zones of Johnson City. We should address both to be more efficient with due diligence in protecting all citizens in Johnson City regarding these detrimental facilities. We need comprehensive zoning codes relative to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin mining, and AI. Why do I include AI data centers? Because they bring with them a critical challenge of managing heat. These centers can take up more energy than entire countries, leading at times to higher utility rates and strained electrical grids that can lead to blackouts as well. They also release pollution into the atmosphere. Mid-sized data centers that use hydro cooling require up to 300,000 gallons of water each day. Meantime, we are told to adjust our thermostats, use energy-efficient water heaters, conserve water usage, etc. Please do what needs to be done to put tighter restrictions in place to make our area less appealing to these disastrous businesses. Please research the negative impacts of these facilities to make the right decisions for all the citizens in Johnson City. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list is Jerry Roberson.
Hello. So I'm here to voice my opposition to Bitcoin mining
and AI in our area. If you want to go ahead and circumvent any of this kind of stuff getting into other zones and restrict it to an I-2 zone temporarily while you make a moratorium and create other buffers, I'm all for that. But we do need a lot more to help prevent these people from coming in and utilizing our resources and putting us last. So Henderson County has done some wonderful things, and I suggest looking into them. One of the things that they've done that I really like is the power grid restrictions, right? So when it comes to any kind of a crypto mining facility, one of the things that that they have set up is the constituents, the actual people, get the electricity during high usage times. And then anything that's left over goes towards the businesses and the industry. Crypto mining gets it last. I also think it would be a really good idea for us to define some of these things, right? So let's define data centers that are service centers, data centers that are data mining centers, AI, and cryptocurrency mining. If we put definitions to these things and then we put adequate restrictions to them separately, then you can help deter a lot of what's going on in other counties and other cities that we don't want in ours. It's one thing to have a data service center that helps us. It's something completely different to have crypto mining drinking all our electricity and driving our prices sky high, especially if they're going to get that electricity during a storm when we all need the electricity and people are trying to stay warm. Right? So I urge you to look at some of these things that these other areas are doing and to listen to what your constituents are saying. We're putting forth some really good ideas. We're quoting a lot of different areas here. And I just ask that you give serious consideration to making these kinds of amendments once we get the moratorium into place. If we have all of these done before the moratorium ends, then we can't get somebody that just kind of slips in under the radar, because once they're in, it's way harder to deal with this. If we can get it done beforehand, that would be best. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will receive public comment in regard to it's the resolution instituting a 12-month moratorium on accepting all new industrial land use applications and the issuance of building permits for new construction in the I-2 heavy industrial zoning district. First on the list is Sylvan Bruni.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm here to speak in support of this moratorium on development in I-2 zoned areas, specifically to protect our neighborhoods from industrial scale crypto mining. And first, I want to remind you and thank you for the 3 commitments that you made at the May 15th Commission meeting. You committed, 1, to enact a moratorium on new development, and that's the item we talked about. Thank you. 2, that you would use that time to conduct meaningful impact studies, which are mentioned in the resolution. And 3, strengthen the zoning code and city ordinances based on those findings, so our communities are never again caught off guard by developments like crypto mining that are fundamentally incompatible with our residential life. Those are the right commitments to make. Now we need to follow through, and transparency and community involvement will be critical to that. And speaking of, I want to raise emerging questions about Bright Ridge, which announced its own moratorium in response to overwhelming opposition. But details about that still remain unclear, and more concerning is the lack of transparency and oversight when questioned about the activities conducted prior to establishing this moratorium. And specifically, I would like to ask, 1, Did Brightridge inform the board on which Mayor Hunter and County Commissioner Huffine sit and represent us that this land would be used for crypto mining? The board minutes of August 22nd, 23 and January 23rd, 24, where those two key votes were taken, do not reflect that. And two, why did Brightridge pay $525,000 for land valued by the county at just over $193,000? Why was no formal appraisal conducted? How did the leadership of Brightridge, a public entity supposed to serve us, justify to its board paying 3 times more for the land absent a crypto-driven return on investment? So far, when neighbors have been asking those questions, no or non-answers were provided. And that silence really erodes public trust. We need answers, and we need oversight that is worthy of the public's confidence. And finally, I urge the city to work on improving its communication with the community. At the last meeting, maps were shared that were deceptive and sent the message to most people, don't worry, JC residents, most of you won't be affected. And this morning, another city-issued fact check on social media was perceived by many as dismissive and condescending. Those are unforced communication errors. They need to stop, and you can do better. So that's why we suggest that a community task force composed of city officials, technical experts, and neighborhood residents come together to support this resolution and improve public engagement on those complex land use issues. I'll conclude by saying that we all want what's best for Johnson City. I'm not here as a partisan stakeholder, but as a neighbor, a taxpayer, and a professional deeply invested of the success of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Fowler.
Good evening. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to address the future livability of our city relative to the threats posed by under-regulation of crypto mining facilities. And I'm especially thankful to do so in solidarity with the 1,300 plus Johnson Cityans who have joined in our growing nonpartisan coalition, many of whom are present here tonight. I left the second reading of Ordinance 4914-25 encouraged that our coalition had moved the City Commission and management towards a more responsible and protective course of action, but this sentiment has since waned, especially after the city posted another unnecessarily confrontational fact-checked graphic on its social media accounts this morning. It's discouraging that this is the city's only public communication regarding this important issue since the last commission meeting, and the previous communication was another fact check containing the same talking points aside from the moratorium now in consideration. The city decided it was best to double down on its previous messaging, including the implication that folks are being misinformed and the city is the factual authority. A more productive and frankly humble message would have been to thank the community for its unprecedented research-based response and guidance, which exposed the weaknesses in the proposed I-2 zoning regulations. In fact, community response is why the Brightridge stalled its plan to build a Bitcoin facility behind my home, and why you're even entertaining an I-2 moratorium. And it's why the original noise-focused impact study is being widened to include potential health, environmental, and infrastructural hazards. So respectfully, it was the city that needed a fact check here. If Johnson Cityans had not done this government's homework for them, we'd be coping with the disastrous consequences of under-regulation. And this leads me to the proposed resolution for a moratorium, which I support with 3 conditions to which I would like the Commission to commit to on record. First, the impact studies be conducted by independent experts and that their findings be transparently communicated to the public. Second, that community members be proactively included in further action through public forums and a task force. Third, that the data captured from the studies and public engagement be used to draft and pass stronger regulations. As I said at the last meeting, if the city isn't particularly interested in attracting the net negative crypto industry, then there's no harm in enacting stricter regulations. The question is whether y'all have the will to do so. According to the conceptual growth strategy drafted by Horizon 2045, on whose advisory committee I serve, most of South Johnson City is flagged for neighborhood stabilization and revitalization or protection of natural areas or agricultural lands. Under-regulated Bitcoin facilities would completely undermine both these objectives. If the city is truly invested in responsible and sustainable growth and the prosperity and health of everyone, everywhere, we need better protections. A moratorium is only a first step. Much work remains, and we, the people, expect to be actively involved. Thank you.
Mr. Adams, you're next.
Fighting the urge to touch this thing. Yeah. So, whenever you're ready, sorry. Mayor Hunter and Commission, thanks for the opportunity to speak again on this issue, and genuinely thank you for your responsiveness in the last meeting that got us to this point. Obviously, I'm with the folks in red, but I wore my casino shirt because I think today is our lucky day. The voice of reason is going to win, and citizens will be protected. Now, this moratorium is not ideal. You recognize that, and I think residents recognize that. It's going to be inconvenient. I-2 lots ultimately need to be developed. However, it is necessary. Pressure from the business side can be a good thing. I think Joe Wise said in the last meeting that it's a bit of a forcing function. It's an ugly truth in politics that when money feels pressure, systems move fast. The bold action in this moratorium, no loophole protection from Bitcoin mines, is exactly what the city needs in this moment. It directly responds to citizen concerns in an accountable manner. It's exactly the sort of good faith measure we need to trust the intentions and motivations of our elected officials. A sober vote in favor, understanding the consequences, and acting in the community's interest anyway goes a long way toward rebuilding some of that much needed trust. So of course, I urge you to vote yes on agenda item 9.2, which I guess is now 5 point something, I don't remember, and follow through with those promises. After that vote, I urge you to bring the community to the table. To be blunt, people don't like being talked at, they like being talked to. One-way press releases don't cut it. We have expertise, we have ideas, and we have skin in the game, and we are ready to talk. You showed us a couple months ago that Johnson City is willing to appeal to higher powers to change the rules when necessary. This body convinced the state legislature to empower Johnson City, and only Johnson City, with the authority to regulate alcohol hours. If you truly believe our hands are tied on specific ideas being shared, and you truly support those ideas, let's flex that muscle again with the community behind you. I have a couple slam dunks to prime the discussion, and I'm itching to talk about them in depth at a later date. One, let's adopt a resolution opposing House Bill 2309, which risks throwing away all of the hard work we're doing to build common sense rules around this nuisance. Let's petition the Tennessee Valley Authority to consider more responsible ways to achieve grid balance. I'm sure Jenny and John can resonate with the notion that TVA rules sometimes work against us in a lot of ways. We have the power to do something great here, and this is a good first start. We're not here to fight you, we're here to fight bad ideas, and I'm optimistic that you will join us in that fight.
Last public comment will be Jerry Roberson.
Am I saying it right?
Yes, it's Robertson.
Robertson, okay.
Either way, I am here with the guys in red as well. So your constituents at No Bitcoin JC, we definitely want this moratorium, during which time we would really like text written that can cover a few of these other items. Some of the things I think we should look at are not just the noise restrictions and not just offsetting the usage with renewable resources, which should be done, but other things, like we need to have an electrical disconnection switch that can be remotely operated, and we need the right to disconnect AI centers and crypto mining centers from the network during high usage time. We can't rely on them to do it themselves, right? We need that ability to disconnect them if something were to happen. Like say we're getting a lot of snow and everybody's needing to cut their heat up. We need to be able to disconnect them, and we need to cover Bright Ridge so that they can disconnect them and not get sued. Let's look at some of these kind of things. Also, fire. So a place like this uses a lot of electricity, and you're talking about I-2 zones. So a lot of these are near our parks, like Buffalo Mountain Park. So we need fire safety measures put into place, right? That includes lightning strikes. Well, if you're getting that much electricity and we're 1,600 foot up into the air, you know, you're prone to get hit by lightning. So let's look at putting some measures into this text that include things like lightning mitigation and fire mitigation. If you're going to be anywhere close to any of our parks and any of our children in our homes, we want these things protected. And I think that about covers me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Ball, I think that concludes public comment. What's next on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is the new 5.2, and this is to consider a resolution instituting a 12-month moratorium on accepting all new industrial land use applications on the issuance of building permits for new construction on I-2. And we have our city attorney, Tom Seeley, here to present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Ms. Ball, Ms. Louse, I'm Tom Seeley, the city attorney. Here to present to you the resolution instituting a 12-month moratorium on accepting all new industrial land use applications and the issuance of building permits for new construction in the I-2 district. This is brought to you as a resolution, so it only needs to be considered on one reading. It's different than an ordinance. Our charter requires our ordinances have 3 readings and come before the board 3 times. So this is a resolution because it's actually not amending any of our zoning ordinances the way the text amendment is. So it comes before you 1 time. This resolution will temporarily halt both the acceptance of new applications and the issuance of building permits for new construction for the I-2 industrial land use. And this will be for a 12-month period. It's important that it is a temporary period because we cannot have a total ban on this type of activity. During this time period, what we are looking at is to give the city the opportunity to study the impacts of the noise, vibration, emissions, and pollutions that are emitted by industries in those areas. And so that does give the city the opportunity and its staff to conduct those studies, gather that information, and then make informed decisions about what other restrictions they can apply in our different zoning districts. So that's what you have before you tonight. Are there any other questions for me?
Questions? Entertain a motion?
I would make a motion to approve, and I guess I want to add, the only way the moratorium works is with the correlated text amendment, because if we don't pass the text amendment, all we're doing is putting a moratorium on I-2. We're not putting a moratorium on development in all the other zones. And as I said last meeting, and the meeting before that, and the meeting in 2023, when I brought this issue up the first time, our zoning code, which is really one of just a few tools in our toolbox as a municipality, is silent on questions of data centers. Because when those documents were written, probably when Eisenhower was president, I don't know exactly when some of that stuff would, but nobody contemplated any of these kinds of uses. And so virtually everything that was said in both segments of public comment are about trying to get our arms around it. Well, the first way we get our arms around it is to define what it is. And the moratorium, we can't apply the moratorium across all of the zoning districts. And so I just want to be clear that, like, when we adopt the moratorium, it only has teeth if we pass the corresponding text amendment. Now, what I gathered by way of feedback from people that I heard from was a level of concern about, well, you're going to pass the text amendment and then you're not going to pass the moratorium. Now that requires a level of coordination in my 9 years I've never seen possible, but I will tell you, just to make sure that question is off the table, I want to vote on this one first so everybody's real clear that we have a moratorium on I-2. Now we need to make sure that we're clear that that is the only place that a data center could even happen. Again, it's not to say we want it to happen there, but it's to put a whole long list of places that it can't happen off the table. Because right now, they're not off the table. Right now, if the Toys R Us building were still standing and they couldn't find a tenant for it, why can't it be a Bitcoin facility? If a department store were to close out at one of the shopping centers and there's a big box there, what's to say something in a B4 couldn't become a data center, or an old grocery store? Or literally, when you start to look at all of the kinds of places that somebody could make an argument that because our code is silent, a data center should go, this isn't the end of the road. This is just the first circle around trying to lasso this issue before the issue lassos us. And so I've made a motion, and well,
Is there a second?
go.
I'll second.
Ms. Laus?
Any
Can
discussion?
we need comments and discussion.
Sure.
Okay. I'd just like to follow up what Commissioner Wise just said, kind of say it in a little bit different way so that this is my understanding. If we don't pass the ordinance tonight, then, as he said, it opens up everything in other zones where this could happen, because the moratorium is just for I-2. Now, my question is, and to Mr. Seeley, if we pass the ordinance, and we're going to be doing studies in the meantime, and we come back with information that impacts this ordinance, we can amend that ordinance, correct?
To amend the ordinance,
Right.
again, I think you could extend, if you need more time, the moratorium, but it just cannot be indefinite.
That's right.
So if you were still gathering information, I think you could also shorten the moratorium if you got information in time that the commission chose to do that.
But it would only apply to I-2 development.
The moratorium only applies to the I-2 development.
And while we have a moratorium in I-2, that prohibits any other industry that might be coming in that would like to go into that zoning restriction. Yeah.
That's correct. All industry in an I-2.
Right. So for me personally, I want us to get through this as quickly as possible. Not delay it, not push it down the road, but we need the answers, and there were several recommendations here that whoever does the study needs to be, it needs to come through, strict qualifications that they can do this study. We need to do peer-reviewed studies that have already been completed, and to look at other cities to see what they've done. I'm going to finish my remarks by saying that this commission, Mrs. Ball, anybody on the city staff, we are not recruiting a Bitcoin mine. It has been brought to us by Bright Ridge. And so as we get into this, because we've never dealt with this before in the city, we have to really put our arms out around everything to try to understand. And you have helped bring information to us that we need to study more in depth. And so the community involvement and in the way you've done it, and particularly tonight, has been very beneficial. And I think you're going to see a lot of the suggestions that you've brought to us that we incorporate in the way we go forward on this. But personally, I feel a real responsibility that we go ahead and pass the ordinance tonight for the total protection that this kind of operation can't go anywhere else in the city either.
Well, and I'll kind of echo that too, and hopefully, a third party that can help us do a study can help us define some things that other cities look to us at what we have done. I think we're getting ahead of this before a lot of cities have, and I think we need to look at what other cities are doing to deal with these issues, but hopefully we can kind of lead that also.
And I think it's worth stating, there's a piece of property that Bright Ridge owns in the industrial park that's contiguous or adjacent to many of your homes. Nothing about this moratorium or this text amendment is specific to those parcels. It's just that there is this, in 2023, when I first raised this issue, I don't think there was there was no conversation about a specific property that I'm aware of. There was still a problem in the county at that point. That is what gave rise to the concern. I think my house is less than a mile from an I-2 zone. So lest we think that this is just about one parcel or one part of town. The things that we are talking about apply citywide. And so just to kind of separate the specifics of what has happened on the Bright Ridge side of things and what we're doing, they're very separate.
Well, and I appreciate you pulling this item before the next vote, because to me, it's important to vote on this first, so. I think, but I don't have any more discussion.
I think we're ready. Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball?
Commission, the next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
I'll start to my right. Do you have any items you'd like to pull?
I don't.
Okay. Commissioner Brock?
I do, but give me a minute.
You want 6.11.
6.11.
6111.
Yeah.
Any others, or
No.
Commissioner Wise?
I was going to pull 611.
Yes,
Ms. Ball?
Item 6.11, and I'll ask our Judge Sharon Green to come forward, if you will. This is to consider approval of a grant contract between the State of Tennessee, Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Service, and the City of Johnson City for the Safe Baby Courts Grant. And welcome, and thank you for being here, and thank you for all the work you do for Johnson City.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your allowing me to speak for just a few minutes. Anytime I get a chance to talk about a safe baby court, our safe baby court, I want to jump on it. We've been in operation now for a full year. It's a evidence-based, very, very specialized segment of our population that we're dealing with in juvenile court. In order to participate in the Safe Baby Court, there has to be a baby or a child between 0 and 3 years old. There can be more children in the family, but as long as there's one between 0 and 3 years old, then we can work with that family. They have to agree to. It's a very we meet very, very often. We meet once a month. We have hearings once a month. We have child and family team meetings once a month. In addition to the hearings, we have, we're just involved. It's not just us. It's other professionals involved with children and particularly that young age child. We can help them if there is a problem. We look for what the problem is. What's causing this child to be involved with Department of Children's Services? And so what we're trying to do is let's see if we can solve that problem. Many children that have Department of Children's Services involvement involve apparent substance abuse, involved maybe some mental health illness, and then it goes on. Sometimes parents just don't have any place to lay their head. And so what we're trying to do is help them. We want to help solve that problem, identify it, and then solve it. And with this group of professionals that we have, and with my Safe Baby Court coordinator, who is, raise your hand, Leah. Oh, she's awesome, I'm just telling you. But with all the people that we have working and are invested in this, with our monthly hearings, which really takes that is at least a half a day just doing nothing but Safe Baby Court. So that's what it is in a nutshell. I kind of drift off just a little bit. We're here to ask you to please accept a grant from the Department of Mental Health. And what that is, it will give us $100,000 a year for 3 years to continue operating our Safe Baby Courts. And so that's what I'm here to ask you to do.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, you want to ask?
How many families do you think you've interacted with through the Safe Baby Court to date?
Because of the intensity and because of the every month and everything, we've probably had close to 15, but I want to tell you this. We have had 2 children, your babies, 2 children that have been able to be returned to their parent because their parent has remedied the condition which brought about involvement of the Department of Children's Services. So that's they're out of there. We're finished with them. Department of Children's Services is finished with them. They are wonderful, doing wonderful. We've had 2 babies that the parents were not able to remedy those conditions which brought about foster care or out-of-home placement that have been adopted. That is a remarkable, quick turnaround to be able for a parent to recognize this is too much, I cannot do this, and to agree that they will agree to someone else being the permanent parent for their child. And so, although the number is not a huge number, the impact and the intensity and the swiftness at which we can do this is what's the impact.
If you change the trajectory of 15 babies' lives, I think that's pretty significant impact.
Well, I do too. I do too. Thank you. Thank you. But it's a whole team. It's a whole team of people working under Leah. And so,
Judge Green, I want to echo what our city manager, Kathy Ball, has said. I've known you for a long, long time. And for those of you in the audience and who are watching on TV tonight, you may not realize that Johnson City has its own juvenile court. If we didn't have it and we didn't have Judge Green, all juvenile cases would go to the county court system, to generalist kind of judges. And so many years ago, we felt like for the benefit of our families and particularly for our children, that to have our own juvenile court system was the best way to go. And then you have somebody like Judge Green. And so I know she doesn't just take her gavel and rule on a case. She works on a case, and she works with the caseworkers who are representing those children coming into the court. I hear more about you all the time, as you know. But thank you so much. You have, as Commissioner Wise says, when you change the trajectory of a small child, the long-lasting impact of that, and then the people around that child changes lives. And so thank you very much. And I'm excited that you have the grant again. And so this is an easy vote tonight.
thank you. Thank you so much, and I appreciate all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball?
Mayor, the next item for business is item 8.1, which is an ordinance to establish a property tax rate, appropriate funds, and adopt a budget for fiscal year July 1, 2025 to June 30, 2026. And if I may be excused to go down and make the presentation. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the Commission, Ms. Laus. It is my pleasure to come before you to make it the first reading of the presentation of the budget for fiscal year 2026. So this is the timeline for the budget. This is the same timeline that you're used to seeing. We're required to have 3 readings of the budget. You can see the dates of those budgets. We will have a special call meeting next week. After this meeting, that meeting will be in this location. It will be held at 7:30 in the morning. So that will be an opportunity for the public to come again at that meeting. Today's meeting will be a public hearing, so it'll be an opportunity for the public to give input on this budget. And then we'll have the 3rd reading on June 19th. And then the budget will go into effect July 1st of this year. So as part of doing the budget, what we like to talk about is tying it back to the strategic plan. So we often talk about what the priorities are in the budget, and I will touch on those components, and then I will turn it over to the budget office for them to talk about the numbers. So the budget considerations, our expenditures reflect investments in the community, and those investments align with the Commission's strategic plan. The growth in our community has created a need, as everyone probably knows, to improve our infrastructure within the community. And unlike prior years, This budget does not go into fund balance in order to balance the budget. And to put that in what other folks may see, it doesn't go into a savings account. The city's savings account is what's referred to as the city's fund balance. So we don't dip into that at all in order to balance the budget. In previous years, that's happened, and then usually we end up returning money back to that fund, but this year's budget does not dip into that in order to balance the budget. This is a trend that shows the general fund balance. As you can see, the trend that was in blue shows the payment out to victims of sexual assault that occurred. The investment priorities, we always try to let the commission know where we prioritize the investments for the year. We put those investments in core services, we put them in employees, and we put them in education. Under core services, I will briefly go through these projects. We are looking at making improvements in areas where we see a tremendous amount of growth occurring. These projects include the West Walnut improvements at the State of Franklin and Antioch Road. You can see that section of roadway, highly traveled roadway with a lot of growth going on in that area. The next project is the widening and signal improvements at Sam Jenkins and Suncrest. This is where we see a lot of houses going up in the gray area. Last year the commission approved a project in that area that is generating a lot of traffic in that area. Also, we have in the same general area a new road between Suncrest and Roscoe Fitz, and the amount of that project is $1.8 million. Also widening and signal at Indian Ridge and Market. This is along Market Street as it goes along in front of Publix, in front of that general area. And again, these are areas where we've had development that have come in and looked to put in development, but we've had some concerns about the ability of these roadways to be able to handle the traffic. Christian Church Road and Boones Creek Road, that is another area that for the past 3 years, we have had money for design improvements in those areas, and then now we're moving forward in funding the construction of that roadway improvement. These are re-budgeted projects. Often what you see is within 1 year, a project may not be completed, it may be designed, and then you see the construction of that project occur over the course of another year. So Gray Station, Bobby Hicks intersection is one of those that you see. Downtown crosswalk lighting, I think most folks here would agree that there's a need for more lighting in crosswalks in downtown. And then we have also the Fire Training Center to complete that project. And then we have a need, oftentimes we have a need to make capital investments so that we can retain the life and increase the lifespan of projects. And this is so that we can do that at the pool at the MPCC. Employees we know are our greatest asset. Investing in employees is investing in our future and making sure we retain talent. We certainly have some happy employees in this picture. We are committed to attract, retain, and support dedicated workforce. Employees equal a great culture. So we are recommending a pay increase of a 3% COLA and a 0 to 1.5% merit. I want to explain that a little bit. We reinstated merit as a part of our pay structure last year when we did the pay plan. We felt like it was important to reward high-performing employees. The average employee will see a 4% increase. There are employees throughout the course of a year that have had just an outstanding year and have accomplished an incredible things and could potentially get a 4.5%. Based on the numbers that I've received from our Human Resources Department, it appears that the number of folks who would receive that are 10 or less within the organization. But I did want to point out that that was the range. Education, again, We continue to invest in our education system. I think you talked about the Safe Baby Court and having children who have the early beginning of their life have a good start. I think this city, for a very long time, has invested in education and in children, and it has paid off well. Town Acres has continued to improve. We know that in a couple weeks, we'll be meeting with the school board again. The design of Town Acres is approximately 90% complete. We'll be starting construction on that project either late fall or in next spring, and then that project will come online. Strategic plan, when we talk about the budget, often we talk about numbers, but really what it says is where we put our money is where we put what's important to the organization. The commission held a retreat in February and said these are our core values. So when we do the budget, we tie that budget back to what those strategic plan items are. And these have been mentioned before: economic vitality. So the projects we talked about before, West Walnut Street redevelopment, is tied to economic development. The John Sevier Center is tied to redevelopment. Quality of place, Town Acres School, having schools. That school is very old. It isn't built in a way that is as secure as we would have it today. Rejuvenating downtown, we showed putting in lights, putting in crosswalks, a commitment to public safety. Future-ready infrastructure, we mentioned a number of different roadway projects that are commitments to improving our infrastructure. Excellence in city government, investing in our employees, and rebuilding our financial position. And now I will turn it over to John Stedman, is that correct? To talk about the revenue side of the budget.
Thank you. I'm John Stedman. I'm the budget analyst for the city of Johnson City. And I'm going to walk through just a few of the numbers. As we see here, the total budgeted revenue for FY26 is $120.1 million. 64% of that revenue comes from our property and our sales tax revenue. Our other local taxes make up about 15% of that, and revenue primarily from the state makes up 13%, and some other sources are about 8%. We're talking about local option sales tax. I took this chart all the way back to FY20 just to show the dramatic increase in our sales tax revenue over those fiscal years. I mean, it's increased almost 50% in that time. And of course, I should point out on all these slides, the numbers listed for FY25 are projected numbers, and the numbers for FY26 are the budgeted numbers. And so for this coming budget, we are budgeting a 3.1% increase over the prior year's projected total for sales tax revenue.
Outside source to inspire that number. Where does that number come from?
That's correct. We use the University of Tennessee at Knoxville publishes an economic report to the governor each year, and as part of that report, they make a projection of the total taxable sales in the state. We've seen a strong correlation between our sales tax revenue and taxable sales statewide. And so we based our recommended 3.1% on that. Their projection was around 3.4%, so we're conservative.
And John, one other question about this, if everybody can see, I mean, your starting point was us coming out of COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so we look at the growth then that has taken place since that time, and we've just had such positive organic growth in our community, and much of the sales tax collection that we get here is made through visitors coming to our center as well. So we do a lot of school funding through sales tax, and so people come in and visit, they buy things, they stay in hotels, and they love to go shop and see our great things, and so they leave their sales tax behind, of which we can use. And so that's why you see us investing a lot in kind of visitor enhancement things that go on and brings people in, and this is the net result of that.
Absolutely. Just, this slide just takes a brief look at some other revenue sources for the city and their growth since the COVID years. Our gross receipts tax has grown very well. Hotel motel tax, as well as you were just mentioning, has grown considerably, especially compared to FY 2020. And our Parks and Rec fees and our Pine Oaks Golf Course fees have rebounded quite well since the pandemic and even exceed pre-pandemic numbers.
In the revenue, you showed 15% that wasn't property or sales tax. Is
Yes.
it basically just gross receipts and hotel motel tax that round out the 15, or is there something else?
Gross receipts, hotel motel, there is beer, liquor, I got a list. So there's a few other local taxes that make up part of that. Our expenses. So the total expenses for the general fund for FY '26 total 92.8 million. And this chart really highlights our commitment to, public safety and a future-ready infrastructure with, our larger departments, police, fire, public works, making up the majority of our expenses. And this just shows our operating transfers out. You'll note that the overwhelming majority go towards our debt service payments and our payments to the city schools.
So that's an internal transfer that we make
Yes.
to these organizations, right?
Yep. And our total, all expenses across all funds, this includes enterprise funds, city schools, and the city itself, is $351,228,785 for FY '26.
And just a point of note that this budget does not recommend a tax increase. And any other questions? I wanted to say that as a part of making the information transparent and available to the public, our communications and team have put together a presentation on the budget so that hopefully folks can look at it online and review it and be able to see what that looks like. And at this time, we're going to show that video. I think it's a short video, but Nick did it, and he's going to show that video, and it'll just show what's going to be online for the public to be able to view whenever they go to our website.
And along with this video will be the detailed budget posted on the website, is that right?
Yes, we will always post the budget once it's approved and goes through final reading. And then again, you'll have to have public hearing tonight for the budget. Okay.
Commissioners, good evening. I'm Dustin Thompson. I'm the Budget Director. I want to thank Nick, who's walking behind you there, Nick Harrison, for producing that video. It is excellent. Really appreciate him doing that. This is a first reading, as Ms. Ball said, and our city charter requires public hearing on first reading. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have on the budget. Otherwise, we would recommend your approval on first reading after public hearing.
Mr. Thompson, it's already been advertised twice, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So the first advertisement was published in the Johnson City Press on Saturday, May 3rd. It was also posted to our website. The second ad was published a week ago today on Thursday, May the 29th. That ad also advertised a public hearing. That ad is also posted on our website.
And that's the full budget that I had to get my little magnifying
Yes,
glass
ma'am.
out to read. Yeah.
And there's been some modification already from first publication because school numbers have been refined.
That is
a little bit.
correct. Yes, sir.
So is that updated budget also posted to the website already?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The first ad that publishes is really a draft. The second ad that publishes is the updated. It is based on the ordinance. That is the ordinance on which you are voting tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions or comments this time?
No, I think, for the public to understand that all cities and counties in the state of Tennessee have to have a balanced budget. Can't spend more than we take in unless we take it out of our savings account, and from time to time we do that. So I think it's a very responsible budget. And Ms. Ball, thank you and your team for, putting this together and setting priorities that, are in line with the direction the commission wants to go. So I would move for approval on first
Oh,
reading.
we need public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But, yeah, save it.
All right, I'll save it.
Yeah. I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come forward. Mr. Willis will keep the time. You'll have 3 minutes.
In 3 minutes. Do you need my name and address again?
The name's fine.
Michael Veller. So the video that we just watched notes that the budget is informed in part by the results of the community survey, which I very happily contributed to when it was advertised. My question, I assume, will be for Ms. Ball to answer, and that is, have the results of that survey been posted in a publicly accessible place?
I am not sure about that. I can check on that and get back with you. I know how to get in contact with you.
Yes, yeah, and I think the public would appreciate if that is a critical part of how you make budgeting decisions, that should be transparently communicated to the community. Thank you.
And it has been in the past because it's been a subject of an open public meeting.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
So, Sylvan Bruni, 166 Garland Way. 2 comments and 3 quick questions. The first comment is on the timeline of the presentation and publication of the budget in the press, because as you know me, I'm trying to keep informed. I did not even know this was happening, right? And we were so all focused on Bitcoin on one side, we totally missed the budget. So I appreciate the informative videos. One other comment, it would be good for the graphs to also show pre-pandemic numbers so we can see whether there was like a rebound and at what level compared to the before. So my 3 questions, number 1, are the numbers corrected for inflation or are they, pure dollars? Number 2, what are the buckets in what you presented where those impact surveys we've been talking a lot about would go? Like out of what bucket are they funded? And is that currently in the budget details? Are there provisions for all of those impact survey we've been talking about during the moratorium? Where is that located in the budget? And then the third question is, what is the strategy to rebuild savings? So the general fund, because we saw that dramatic graph at the beginning with the blue bar, everything goes down, but I didn't hear whether some of the revenue was allocated to go back to that, to slowly rebuild those savings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or? Mr. Robertson.
My name is Jerry Robertson, and I suggest that to pay for this, because we know that this all needs to happen, right? On the Bitcoin side, we add to the sin tax for the cigarettes, the alcohol, all of that. That's where I propose that money come from.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. Hearing none, I will close public hearing. Dustin? There were a couple questions, I'm not sure.
They were inflation, buckets, and strategy to rebuild.
Savings.
So regarding inflation, every year we always take economic conditions into consideration when forming the budget. So the short answer to that question would be yes. Secondly, and I apologize, I'm not certain that I understand the second question.
I think he was relating to impact fees. If we ended up charging impact fees, could it maybe be a line item on income as maybe the?
And my question on the inflation is, are the numbers corrected for inflation?
The sales tax numbers are straight numbers. Those aren't adjusted for inflation.
Because when we compare 20 million 5 years ago, that's not 20 million now.
Yeah, they're not.
So,
right.
They're not adjusted. That's
Those are raw numbers. I'm sorry, I understand what you're saying.
And then the second was what bucket of the budget are impact studies funded out of?
General.
It would depend on what the study is. So if it was something, probably what you're referring to, yes, would be funded out of the general fund. If it were water sewer related, it would be funded out of water sewer, and so on and so forth. So it would come out of the respective fund.
And then the third was?
And I can speak to rebuilding, if that's okay with you,
Sure,
Dustin. So as an approach that we've taken, we have looked at our budget and tried to, as much as possible, look at ways that we can cut back. We've asked department directors to look at ways that we can reduce spending. I think this year we went to 5% reductions, 10% reductions, just ways of being able to cut back some so that we could build back those funds. The city's still in great financial shape. Luckily, we had a great fund balance savings account, but we want to get back into great financial condition. So we are doing that. We are also watching our revenues coming in and trying to balance that. Usually, and you would typically see that we would recommend a higher amount of increase in employee increases. This year it was not as high as we would like for it to have been. So it's small amounts across the whole budget that we looked at, but the city's not in such bad financial shape that we had to drastically do anything, but we're watching everything that we're doing and trying to make increases across the board, if that answers your question.
I think the other optimistic thing and that we've seen for many of us who've been on the commission for a while is really just overperformance of particularly sales tax over the years. And when we have more coming in than we needed for the budget, it goes into fund balance. And so if we keep things here in the city moving forward and getting focused on, our core services and who we are as a city, we'll see, a healthy economy returning. And it has been. Last year was great. The year before was great. That's how we built such a strong fund balance to begin with.
Any other comments, or can I entertain a motion? Or I guess
I will make a motion to approve on first reading.
Second.
Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item for consideration is item 7.2. This is ordinance 4919-25. This is the first reading. It's an ordinance to amend Article 6 using requirements by district for Article 11, parking regulations of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, zoning ordinance as it relates to B2, Central Business District, B3, supporting Central Business District, and WWD, West Walnut District. We have Bryce McNamer. or?
Thank you, Ms. Ball. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Bryce McNamer, planner with the Development Services Department. This is a text amendment to the Johnson City zoning ordinance regarding downtown districts as well as parking. So we are on the first reading of this text amendment. This did receive a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission on May 13th. Prior to this, we will go to the public hearing at the second reading on June 19th and then proceeding forward. There are 3 topics of interest within this text amendment, while they are all surrounding of parking related and downtown oriented, but the first of which is the B3 supporting Central Business District. This will be the most content you will see within this. It has the most, and it encompasses residential uses within the B3 as well as the use of existing buildings and what that impacts for parking. The second of which is clarification on the requirements for the B2 Central Business District, and the last of which is paving and striping requirements for parking in all 3 of downtown districts, those being B2, B3, and West Walnut. So taking a look at the existing locations that this will impact, our dark red area is the B2. This is generally recognized as our downtown core and contains Fountain Square, East Main, East Market, that area. The lighter red pinkish color is the B3, and henceforth the name supporting Central Business. It essentially forms a ring around what the B2 is. There are 2 anomalies to this specific zoning district. One of which, well, both of which being on West State of Franklin Road, first of which being around the Millennium Center, directly in between the campus and the VA, and the other of which being the Burlington Mills property. Both of these were rezoned very long time, about 20 to 30 years ago, for the purpose of adaptive reuse in supporting the downtown area. And obviously we do have our West Walnut District, which does have its own zoning district, as well as it is the site of the redevelopment corridor. Specifically looking at 616.1, which is the intent of the B3 supporting Central Business District, at the underlined section, intended to promote uses and services which are compatible with the downtown use, specifically within this ring, as well as encouraging the housing opportunities for downtown employees and future residents. So first, I would like to look at some of the urban form and some of the characteristics of what we see in some of the areas that have a little bit more predominant B3. First of which, looking at West Market and West Main Street from about the Carver Park area down to the intersection with John Exum. Now, all these properties in the middle are all zone B3, and there's a plentiful amount on either side as well. But what you can see is these areas are very close to the downtown core. They have been developed a very long time ago, and not a lot of vacant sites, but we do have very small lots. We do have a very high percentage of lot coverage by the existing structures. And we can also see this in more of a residential context. If we look over by the Langston Center and the neighborhoods that surround that, we can see the lot lines very close together, mostly already developed, as well as that same lot coverage. The structures do take up the majority of the lot. So taking a look at the area regulations for the B3 zoning district, the only required setback you would have is when your property is fronting an arterial or collector road as designated by the Johnson City zoning map, and that would be 15 feet. Otherwise, on a local road, there is no front setback. Side and rear, there is never a setback requirement. There is no maximum lot coverage, and there is no height restriction for any type of development. However, as it's worded in the code currently for residential uses, single-family, two-family, and multifamily dwellings, provided the development meets all requirements of the RO1 district. So that directly links your area regulations for residential uses over to the RO1 requirements and does contain their area regulations. So you can see a pretty drastic increase on the front setback going from 15 to 25, and you will have a 10-foot setback even if you're not on the arterial or collector. You will have a side setback requirement, and you will have a drastic increase in the rear setback, that being 30 feet. There is also a maximum lot coverage limit of 35%. However, there is no height restriction in the R01 as well. Within the R01 and not within the B3 is the density cap of 35 dwelling units per acre. So to gain some consistency in the rest of the uses that are permitted within the B3 and the residential uses that are permitted in the B3, staff is proposing to remove the language that adheres all residential uses directly to all of those requirements for the R01, therefore making it more consistent with other permitted uses in this district. However, since this was not included in the area regulations of the B3, staff is proposing to maintain the density cap of 35 units per acre. Now moving over into our second topic, parking regulations. I'd like to first go through the purpose statement, which is 11.1. This is the guiding statement for the entirety of our parking regulations in Article 11. When parking shall be provided, obviously at the time of any structure being built, when the structure is enlarged or more rooms are added, guest rooms, floor area, we will be specifically looking at the conversion from one zoning use or occupancy to another clause and how that impacts specifically the B3. So as a brief overview and a theoretical example here, how this would look in an existing building is an existing warehouse had a requirement of 6 parking spaces per 11.3, 1 space per employee, and that's what they were required upon development. A proposal comes to planning staff with a developer or new business proposing to change this to a retail. Now they are required to follow that parking regulation as that is their use. So they would be required to update their parking to match their new use. Now this is a very simple example that we see where there is room and it is very feasible with a drive aisle location, etc. Now what we see in the B3, as we saw with the lot coverage issue, and how these structures have developed on previous regulations without parking most of the time, is we see some of the limitations. Most commonly is that there's existing parking, but it is not feasible to meet what our current requirements are based on the location and the size of the existing building. Or what we do see a lot of the times is that the building exterior walls itself are actually aligning up with the lot lines, something that we would see more commonly in a B2, but it does extend into the B3 a lot. In order to combat this issue, staff is proposing amendments to the general provisions section of the parking regulations, which is 11.2, specifically for existing buildings, not affecting new builds, only existing buildings on the effective date of this ordinance and within B3 do not have to meet the requirements of 11.3, which is your required parking space number. In the following circumstances, and we have A, B, and C, first of which is changing to a permitted use. This would allow a typical commercial building to be occupied, as we saw in the previous slide, change from a commercial to a commercial or institutional to a commercial, something like that, a simple switch from non-residential and non-residential. Second of which, excluding single-family and two-family dwellings, the building primarily reserves ground floor space along principal road frontages for non-residential uses. This is encouraging a mixed-use development that is very similar to B2. This wording is seen in B2. So we are not hindering the development of multifamily. However, we would like to see along those road frontages still giving back to that streetscape and having some sort of storefront or a commercial use that can be used by many in the downtown area. And last of which is limiting the expansion of the existing building by more than 25%, or by less than 25%. That is the gross floor area, so that would include along the ground or directly up as well for additions. Also taking into account the lot coverage once again and the feasibility of providing parking even when it is required and it is not exempted from the required parking spaces. We do want to encourage multifamily development and residential development near the downtown core, as was noted in the intent of the B3 district itself. However, the parking spaces in the parking area is going to be limited in applications for new multifamily. Staff is proposing that we have a new parking standard for B3, only requiring one space per dwelling unit. This is recognizing that need for multifamily while recognizing the urban form that they are in. Moving on to the second topic of interest, this is a simple relocation of an existing clause. This is the full purpose statement, which is guiding the entirety of Article 11. Once again, we looked at this part. This red section at the end, the provisions of this section shall not apply to B2 Central Business District. As this currently reads, and where it is in the code, this reads as that nothing in Article 11 at all applies to B2. Now, that would include the required parking spaces, which is the intent of that, and we would like to keep that. However, there are many other topics that are addressed within the general provisions and as well as other parts of Article 11 parking regulations. We are proposing to relocate this to directly above our table in required parking spaces 11.3 to not require developments or change of use or buildings in the downtown core of B2 to have a required parking space amount. So looking at what those other requirements would look like, so currently not applicable to any parking in the B2, where it is currently, the access to the drive aisle, each space, on-site turning space, not backing into the street. Maintenance of parking areas, specifically the parking design standards and the angles and the length and width of each spaces, accessible spaces, and then paving and painting we will look at in our third topic. As this is worded, it is not currently applicable to non-required parking. So if parking was provided in excess of what was required, or if there was no required and they provided anyway. So as we can see, this is worded, each required parking space, each required parking space. The first one touches on the paving, the second one touches on the striping. Staff is proposing that we add wording in the middle specific to all three downtown districts, B2, B3, and West Walnut, to require all parking, if required or not, that is developed in our downtown core to be paved and striped. This is moving forward with the urban feel of downtown and getting away from gravel lots and unpaved lots and unstriped lots, as well as just keeping it safe and less confusing for parking areas in the downtown. Looking at the bridge plan, this is supported. First of all, looking at the land use element, reducing minimum parking standards to prevent inefficient creation of underutilized costly land development. Also in the land use element, promoting the revitalization of the downtown area and other urban commercial districts. And third of which, downtown revitalization element, encouraging the renovation and rehabilitation of existing buildings and storefronts. So in conclusion, as we anticipate more growth and we hope for more growth in the downtown area, staff is proposing that the additional area regulations for residential uses in the B3 are removed, only maintaining the density, lessening the parking requirement for the multifamily use, allowing the exemption from minimum parking space requirements in certain circumstances for the B3 with existing buildings, clarifying the applicable parking regulations in B2, and including requirements of paving and painting in all the downtown districts. And to respond to Mr. Bray during public comment, I do believe, yes, the scope is rather limited with a specific text amendment, but staff is looking into more ways to not only address the downtown with our ongoing parking study, but looking at other ways to improve that around the city. Staff recommends approval.
I have a question, Mr. McNamara, on number 1, and I guess on number 2 as well. B3 is surrounding the downtown central area. So there are public parking areas that are within, access for some of these B3 locations where people could park?
Yes, depending on where they are. Looking at this is a little bit of a wide view, but a lot of your parking is going to be centered here. I know there is a little bit of parking as you get down this way, but they are the closest district to B2 and where a lot of that public parking is.
And we are soon to have the results of the parking study that looks at how we increase parking for the public as well.
Thanks for your presentation. You always do a great job. B3 is a weird district for me. And it it's not all parking requirements, but it looks like there's a 15-foot setback on B3 for arterial and collector streets. And I'm assuming Main and Market are,
Both arterial.
yeah, and so, I mean, B3 is really kind of, a 50-foot setback's pretty inconsistent with all of Main and Market. And I know that's not just in, you're not addressing that here, but that is something I would love for planning to kind of
By the
look
time
at.
you put 15 on both Main and Market, you could open a photo mat.
Yeah.
A what? Back in the olden days, you took film to a little drive-up phone booth, and a phone booth, never mind.
And then also our RO1's kind of a funny district, which is kind of Unaka, Watauga, and it allows for business uses, but then it adds a parking requirement.
Correct.
And that area to me is really, it needs to be one or the other, in my opinion. Just, if you got parking requirements, what do you do with the houses that are there? But if you're allowing businesses in that district, how do you force parking requirements? It makes it kind of a tough spot, and it's kind of been stagnant for a long time because it doesn't really have an identity, and it's hard to change the use from a house to a business when you've got to queue up the parking requirements. So that's not with this, but is points of thought.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Laus.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball.
Next order of business is item 8.1. This is ordinance 4910-25. This is the third and final reading for an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee by changing from I-2 district to R2 district for property located at 134 Dalewood Drive.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. This is the third and final reading for the rezoning at 134 Dalewood Drive from I-2 to R2. There have been no changes to this request. Staff continues to recommend approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Ms. Laus.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes.
Next order of business is item 8.2, ordinance 4913-25. This is the third and final reading of an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee by changing from R4 district to B4 district for property located along Bristol Highway and Creedmoor Drive.
Thank you. This is on the same timeline as the previous item. No changes to this request either.
Move approval.
Second.
Ms. Laus.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball.
Next item is 8.3, ordinance number 4914-25, the third and final reading of an ordinance to amend Article 2, definition of terms and uses in the code, and Article 6, use requirements by district, section 619, 620, and 622 of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee zoning ordinance as it relates to industrial uses, and adding provisions for data centers.
Move approval for all the reasons I previously stated.
Second.
Ms. Laus.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball.
Next item is item 8.4. This is an owner consent annexation. It is for 5840 Bobby Hicks Highway. It's the final resolution and a public hearing to consider approval of the final resolution calling for a public hearing on a voluntary annexation of approximately 3.9 acres located at 5840 Bobby Hicks Highway.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Callie McGrew, planner with Development Services, and there have been no changes on this project.
And this is the new driver's license office.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
And we have a public hearing.
Glad you mentioned that. Good catch. I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
Ms. Laus.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball.
Next item, ordinance 4915-25. This is the third and final reading and public hearing for an ordinance assigning Planned Community Business District B5 to approximately 3.9 acres located at 5840 Bobby Hicks Highway.
There have been no changes.
And there is a public hearing. On 8.5.
Oh, yes, you're right. I see. We will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step forward. Hey, if you'll state your name, and Mr. Willis will keep time.
Sorry, my name's Allison Gardenauer. I'm not speaking for or against. I just live near there, and I wondered where exactly is that? Is that okay? Thank you.
So the address is 5840 Bobby Hicks Highway. I'm trying to get you a zoomed out photo.
Might have to go to the Google.
Google. Is this helpful at all? The star is right here where the site is.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry.
No, you're
So
good.
headed east from Gray towards the airport, about a half a mile before the big intersection on Kingsport Highway
Okay, great.
on the right.
Just past the gas station and all.
Yeah.
Anyone else wishing to speak? I'll close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes.
Next order of business is item 8.6. This is ordinance 4916-25. This is the third and final reading for an ordinance to amend Title 8, Chapters 1 and 2 of the Code of the City of Johnson City.
Ms. Bell?
Commissioners, Vice Mayor, Mayor. This is Title 8, this is our alcoholic beverages title, and this is the revisions to allow for the special permitting process. There are no changes from the last time.
Is there a
Make a
comment?
motion to approve?
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball?
Next item is 8.7, ordinance 4917-25. This is the third and final reading of an ordinance to amend Title 20, Chapter 4 of the Code of the City of Johnson City.
And similarly, this Title 20 is our miscellaneous title. It includes our parks, and so it's just coinciding the changes to Title 8 with Title 20. There are no changes from last time.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball?
The next items are under other business. The first one is item 9.1, and this is to consider approval of the retreat Phase 4 concept plan amendment for 2020 Indian Ridge Road. And this is a public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. This is a request for a concept plan amendment known as the Retreat Phase 4. Some background dates. The neighborhood meeting was held on April 28th, 2025. There were no attendees or concerns over the request. The Planning Commission made a recommendation with a contingent item that will be discussed in the presentation on May 13th, and the final reading and public hearing is tonight. The location of the retreat is in its entirety is off of Indian Ridge Road. It is the entire development in R4. However, Phase 4 of what we are discussing tonight is in the red, dedicated with the star. The Food City is located here, and Indian Ridge is further down to the west. The request for the concept plan amendment is to approve is to change a previously approved plan that has 22 bedroom units to 41 bedroom units. There are no new structures being proposed. It is all interior unit counts. Background on the site: in 2022, it was rezoned from RP3 planned residential to R4 for the development of the 20 residential units. The concept plan included 5 buildings with 4 units per building. With the R4 zoning, it allows 14 units per acre with a total of, and with the total site being 10.8 acres, it is 148 units. This proposal and amendment will max out at 148 units, so it is within the allowed density. You will notice there are no changes to the actual concept plan since there are no new structures. It is, again, all interior from 22 bedroom to 41 bedroom units. And per our zoning code, any increase in intensity or density requires a concept plan amendment. There is additional parking that is being provided for these additional units. The future land use map, the 2020 future land use map, as well as the draft 2045 horizon land use map, both call this for neighborhood residential, which is in line with the proposed amendment. Again, public neighborhood meeting was held April 28th with no attendees. Water is available for the project, and per the staff report and planning commission recommendation that the study for sewer capacity was to be completed prior to city commission. That study has come back, and there is availability for 41 bedroom units as being proposed. And the concept plan meets the requirements of the R4 zoning. Planning staff recommends approval for the concept plan, and there it is a public hearing.
Comments first or public hearing?
I do have a question. I'm a little slow tonight, so kind of go through, there were 20 two-bedroom apartments, and now they want to take the same space and turn that into 41 bedroom apartments.
Correct.
So from a density standpoint, is it net neutral, or if they're going to add additional parking, it may be more traffic in the area?
So from a density standpoint in the zoning, it is a increase in density. Per the concept plan, it's required to come back and increase in intensity or density, and so when we're increasing the overall unit count, that will potentially have more traffic, more residents in the area. So it does count for additional units.
Do we know the square footage of the units that the 41 bedrooms would represent? Because that'll affect parking. Like, how big a unit are these?
They are over 400 square feet.
So they're going to require 2 spots.
Correct. And at the time of the original concept plan, there was an abundance of parking, so it was already being accounted for in the original plan.
So this is a resolution, and we get one vote on it, right?
Yes.
Okay. But you said it's going back to the planning commission.
No, the planning commission recommended approval contingent on the study coming back for the sewer and for your approval, and the sewer study came back prior to this meeting.
Okay. So this was evaluated against services that.
Correct.
And everything checks the box now that the sewer checks the box.
Correct.
Did you also look at the addition of, because of the densities increasing, the impact to traffic?
So when the property was rezoned in 2022, there was the entire allotment of the allowed units of 148 were taken into account, and a traffic analysis was included at that point. And our traffic engineers also looked at this request and had no issues.
But this sits back off of Indian Ridge a little bit, is that right?
Correct.
It's
And
not
I will-
right on facing Indian Ridge?
No, so Indian Ridge is down, let me get you a better
This
view.
kind of backs up to the railroad track.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes. So Indian Ridge is down at the very entrance, and this is in the very rear of the
Yeah,
property, and
I
the
know where it
railroad
is.
track is right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, so they'll be going out closest to the main intersection that we redid a few years ago.
Correct.
Okay, all right, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions or a motion? No.
It is a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for, against, or just about this request? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And now I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
It's your turn.
Yeah, reluctantly, I'll second it.
Okay. Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball?
The next item is item 9.3. This is an owner consent annexation for developed property on Gray Station Road. Is to consider a request to amend the previous adopted final resolution for voluntary annexation of approximately 7.07 acres along Gray Station Road to include a recorded property survey as Exhibit B.
Good evening. Like Ms. Ball said, this is just an amendment to the previously approved final resolution that the commission saw last year and approved on October 3rd, 2024. During that time, and let me back up, I apologize. So this is the site, the Gray Station annexation, and the fire station is over here. And the property located with the yellow X is just what they are clarifying through the recorded survey. At the time of the report, Exhibit B was the GIS map that staff attaches to the staff reports and plan of services and resolution. At that time, this survey was also included in the staff report. However, there's just been a discrepancy with the tax assessor in the property of the highlighted area in red not being indicated on the GIS produced map. So this request is just to amend and include the actual recorded survey with the property lines for the final resolution.
Move approval.
Second.
Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball?
The last item on the agenda is an owner consent annexation at 3319 West Walnut Street. This is to consider a request to proceed with annexation of approximately 0.62 acres fronting West Walnut Street and Matson Road.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. Yeah, this is the first step in the process for a voluntary annexation. The request to proceed essentially giving staff the go-ahead to move forward with studies, then would go to the Planning Commission and back to you for the resolutions and zoning assignment. If approved this evening, we would start our first round of notifications, and then our second round of notifications as required by TCA would happen after the August 7, 2025 meeting. Here's our site here. We're looking on the corner of West Walnut and Matson Road. It's a little bit hard to see there, but here's where we are. Once again, using some landmarks, Burlington Mills. This is Walnut Street as you're going essentially towards Jonesboro, or Antioch Road as you're going towards Willow Springs here. We're looking at this singular property with an existing single-family home on it. The request is annexation of 0.62 acres of the singular parcel. This parcel is contiguous to the current city limits as West Walnut Street. The right-of-way itself is within the city. This property is also within the urban growth boundary and urban service area. The zoning that was requested is R2, and there is no additional development proposed, just simply annexing the property and the existing residence. Looking at the zoning in the area, the right-of-way itself, as well as the nearest subdivision, is also zoned R2. Within the county, this property is currently zoned R1, low-density residential, and abuts many other properties zoned R1, and R1 is essentially the Washington County equivalent of our R2. If moved forward with, the plan of services would be created and presented at the Planning Commission meeting, and then back to you if given a positive recommendation. The following departments would give feedback on that plan of services. Staff recommends approval of the request to proceed as this property is adjacent to city limits and within the urban growth boundary and urban service area.
Any comment?
I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cox?
Yes.
Mayor Hunter?
Yes. Ms. Ball?
That is all of your formal business,
Okay.
Mayor.
I will start to my left with commissioner updates and comments. Commissioner Wise?
since our last meeting, the JCDA had a meeting, and progress continues on the relocation of the residents of the John Sevier, and that appears to be on track for late in 2025, November, December.
Okay. Commissioner Brock?
Yes, before the audience leaves, I have a request. I'm on the Animal Control Board at the Washington County Johnson City Animal Shelter. We have lots of animals right now.
Here comes the pitch. You're
Here it
going home with a
comes.
kitten.
We have them outside the door. So as you leave, pick which one you want. Now, we really do need the public to step forward and for a couple of reasons. One is we've been helping Unicoi County, and just in this past month, we've taken over 100 of their animals. We have about 160 dogs right now, really cute ones, and some great puppies, and probably about 250 cats. Now multiply that by 4 paws. That's the chaos in an animal shelter. But we're looking for foster homes, we're looking for people who just really need to have a pet in their home, and that would help us out. The thing that complicates everything is starting on June 9th, we are resurfacing the floors in the kennels. If you've been out to the shelter, they've been painted twice. They just don't hold up to, the animals, the dogs particularly. And so we're putting a flooring system in that we'll never have to worry about again. But with that being said, we have 3 kennel areas, so we have to empty one of the kennel areas and then have that vacant for probably a week before we can return them in there. So we're really trying to get our pet population down. And, during the hurricane, we had rescue groups from up in the Northeast really help out, and they're coming down to take some of our animals as well to help kind of control the population. That being said, go knock on the door, tell them you had a personal referral from Commissioner Brock, and we've reduced the adoption fees to we'll pay you to take them, I guess. But anyway, talk to your friends. If anybody's looking for a pet, right now's the time to do it, and we would appreciate it a lot. And spay neuter your pets. Thank you.
Blue Plum this weekend, so if anybody wants to get out and go downtown, it'd be great.
With a raincoat?
Right.
Rain or shine.
Rain or
Bring a poncho, bring a poncho, bring a poncho, bring a poncho.
That's good.
Just looked at my calendar. I think the Board of Education met on Monday, and they're going to be welcoming a new superintendent at the end of this month. So we're excited about that. And Blue Plum, of course, will be this weekend. So hopefully we have good turnout and good weather. But no other comments. We'll adjourn the meeting.